Welcome to another episode of 40 Minutes in the Old Testament. 40 Minutes in the Old Testament is a 1517 Podcast Network podcast. You can go to 1517.org/podcast and check out all the other podcasts that are living over there. And while you're over there, check out everything else that 1517 is doing: articles, academies, events, videos. There's a lot of events. Chad, before we were recording, he was talking about the schedule, man. The schedule this guy's on. Sometimes we have to record more than one episode at a time because, Chad's out and about. He's out there doing stuff. And he might be doing one of those things near you, but you wouldn't know that unless you go over to 1517, you go look at the events page, and then you could see that Chad might be speaking at some church or something right across town from you, and you might not ever know it unless you went and checked it out. There's a chance that I could be doing that, but there's a better chance that Chad would be doing that. And the reason for that is Chad don't have kids at home. Chad's out there roaming the earth.
Pretty big difference.
Yeah, doing the stuff. I got obligations that I don't get to do that for. I was about to be in Chad's boat, but I've set myself back significantly. So it might be a while.
You only got 17 more years to go.
I really decided to put that whole thing on hold. So, so check out all that stuff. See if there's anything that 1517 is doing near you. A whole bunch of other speakers as well. And so if there's something near you, you should check it out. All right, Chad, we are in Song of Solomon. We are in the 3rd chapter. Left on a little bit of a little cliffhanger here, where we are in kind of in verse 6, and we talked a little bit about kind of 6 through 8, and talked about whether this is Solomon or whether this is the bride, kind of leaning towards the bride here, that the bride is coming up from the wilderness. And the thing that I like about this and taking this way is that, what does the bride have? Well, everything she has is given to her by Solomon. Everything like she has it belongs to the groom, right? So it's where is she? Well, she's on his couch. And she's got his guys with her, and she's protected by his men and all this kind of stuff. And, of course, this is exactly how it works for the church. The church doesn't have anything that doesn't belong to Christ. And everything that's worth anything that we possess has, of course, been provided for us by Christ. And so I think this works rather nicely.
Yeah. It works really well. And I think I pointed this out last time that, this can be translated, what is that, or who is this? And it fits pretty well with the fact that here we have the bride of Christ that's coming up from the wilderness. And you got all this imagery that's connected too with perfume, and even some of the language you choose here is very much related to like the tabernacle and the temple. So when it says that she is perfumed with myrrh and frankincense, the verb that's used there is the typical verb used for like burning incense in the temple. So you get the image of this smell of myrrh and frankincense and the fragrant powders of a merchant. So here you have the bride of Christ, and she's coming up from the wilderness, and she's surrounded by these columns of smoke. Now you might think of like the pillar of cloud and fire. It's a slightly different Hebrew word that's used here than is used elsewhere. But one interesting tie-in here. So the Hebrew phrase translated here as columns of smoke is only found in 2 places in the Old Testament. One is here, and then one is in Joel 2:30. And Joel 2, this is the description of what God is going to do at Pentecost. So this is the part of Joel that Peter quotes, blood and fire and pillars or columns of smoke. So just another nice tie-in there with the church receiving the Spirit at Pentecost. And here you have the church with these columns of smoke or pillars of smoke surrounding her as she comes up from the wilderness, smelling good. Myrrh, frankincense,
isn't it hard
all the
to
sensory images.
It's hard to hear, you're like, ooh, myrrh and frankincense, and not be like, well, we got some Christmas stuff going on here. I've got a Christmas ornament.
Oh, you need gold next.
Yeah, well, the gold's coming. So we're about to hear about some gold. But I've got a Christmas ornament. It's a little clear ball, and it's just got A little bit. It's got gold flakes and a little bit of frankincense and a little bit of myrrh in it. It just hangs on the tree.
Nice.
Pretty nice. Somebody gave it to me, but probably one of my favorite ornaments because it's just cool, you know. And but anyway, it's hard to hear that, and I think about that, and you're like, why does she have that though? Well, maybe this is the groom after all. He's got this frankincense and myrrh, but I don't think so. I think that just goes to prove that there's nothing that belongs to Christ that he hasn't given to you.
My beloved is mine and I'm his.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are you doing with that frankincense and myrrh? Oh, well, it was given to Christ, and then he gave it to me so I could smell good.
Yeah. 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 Of course. Whatever is his is also ours. So whatever belongs to Solomon here belongs also to his love. So what is this? Or who is this rather coming up? And we're having verse 7. Behold, it is the couch of Solomon. ESV has litter of Solomon. I think that's probably the typical way that this is translated. Other translations have it is the bed of Solomon or the carriage of Solomon. The American Standard has the traveling couch of Solomon. That just sounds funny. The traveling couch. You get the picture. I mean, you've either seen this in real life or you've seen this in pictures or movies where you have, this very regal, perhaps even flamboyant seat. And there is the member of royalty seated upon it. Usually you have these poles along the side, and you have these big, strong guys with the poles on their shoulders, and they're walking along carrying the royalty. Well, that's a picture that you have here, except the one who's on this is not Solomon, but instead it's going to be his love. At least that's the way that we're taking this. And she's safe. I mean, she's got not 5, 10, 15, 20, but 60 of these warriors, the mighty men of Israel, who have swords, experts in war, each with his sword at his thigh against any terrors by night. So she's protected, which is just, I mean, if you want to kind of take the symbolism and apply it, I think you can go a lot of different directions. You could talk about the angelic guards that are around the people of God. You could talk about preachers. You could talk about those who proclaim the word of truth, who have the sword of the Spirit. I mean, there's many directions you could take this, all of which would fit with the biblical narrative. But the message is clear that the church is safe because she is the beloved of Christ and she is protected by those whom God has placed around her to protect her.
Yep, nothing gonna happen to her, which is
nothing gonna happen to her.
Certainly something that is biblically borne out. What's gonna happen to the church? Nothing.
Yeah. I mean, the church's life on the outside anyway may seem to ebb and flow and weaken and strengthen, but she's fine.
That's right.
Because she belongs to him who is the resurrection and the life. So we are at verse 9, and now we've had a description of the bride coming, and now we have a description of Solomon, the king, who is an icon or image or type of Christ. And what's he doing? Well, he has made himself a carriage. This is a synonym. It's not the same Hebrew word that's used earlier that translated as litter or this traveling couch. And the experts on the language here will point in about 6 different directions. This could be a Akkadian word. This could be a Greek word. This could be a long list of words. It was kind of borrowed into Hebrew because it only occurs here. But the meaning of it seems to be pretty obvious given the context here, that this is another one of these regal couches, regal seats that are borne by those who are carrying the king along. And we have a description of it. So King Solomon, he has this carriage, this traveling couch. And what's it made from? Well, obviously, it's going to be made from wood from, drum roll. I mean, where's the best of wood always come from in the Bible? Not Edom or Egypt, but always Lebanon. I mean, the cedars of Lebanon, I don't know if we have anything. I don't think we have anything that's the equivalent that we would talk about, like a certain kind of wood
Dude, I
from a certain part of the country.
I gotta get my hands on some of this Lebanese Wood.
Cedar. I mean, yeah.
What's going on with this wood?
Yeah, this was, I mean, this was, we hear about it all, of course, all over the Bible, but it was, I mean, all over the ancient Near East. It's like, oh, yeah, you need wood. I mean, so you want high quality wood? No other place to go. You don't
Yeah,
go
dude.
to like Home Depot or
Imagine if
someplace
someone
like
gave you.
that. You go to Lebanon.
I mean, imagine Chad if someone gave you like, hey, here's a hatchet, but this isn't any old hatchet. The handle of this hatchet is made from the cedar from Lebanon. You'd be like, whew, uh,
Instant family heirloom.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, without a doubt. Yeah. I've got some, when I was in Israel, at Bethlehem, I got some, little figurines and other things carved from olive wood
Oh,
that were from that area. But, and I'm very grateful for those. They're beautiful, but, not quite Cedar of Lebanon stuff. That was the best of the best.
there probably isn't any. They probably chopped all that down. That sounds
Probably, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
the
Yeah,
timber industry was
yeah.
booming over there. I mean, they couldn't chop those trees down fast enough.
Fabled forest of Lebanon.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's got to be from there because of course, that's where the best came from. And that, of course, is what they also used in Jerusalem to build the temple. So the cedars of Lebanon were the best. He made its post of silver, probably like the wood covered in silver. Its back is gold. There's your gold.
Yeah.
We have our myrrh and frankincense, and now we have our back from this seat. It's made of gold, not bronze, not silver, but the best of the best. Its seat is purple. Purple is we talk about blue bloods, right? Or do we still use purple in reference to royalty? I suppose
I
maybe we
think
do it in
so.
some
Yeah.
context, but yeah, I mean in the ancient world. So this isn't just like any old dye. Like yeah, you got some red dye, you got some pink dye, you got some black dye, you got some purple dye. This was like the best of the best. And this is the same kind of dye that would have been used in parts of the temple and the tabernacle. And it was yeah, it's a symbol of wealth and affluence. So to have a seat of purple is basically to say you are in a royal seat. This is high quality, very, very wealthy material. Its interior was inlaid with love by the daughters of Jerusalem. So, one more reference to these daughters of Jerusalem, whoever they were, probably just kind of a phrase for a general group of females connected with the city, whether they were doing this kind of work or whether they're singing in the choir or whether they are compared and contrasted with the lover of Solomon. Anyway, that's this group. They did some of the work on this. And they're told, verse 11, to go out, to get up and to go out, O daughters of Zion, and look upon King Solomon. So check him out. You got the bride coming out, you got the groom coming out, Solomon meeting his bride, Christ meeting his church. And the daughters of Zion, they gather around. They're going to be there also. And what are they going to see? They're going to see Solomon with the crown with which his mother crowned him on the day of his wedding, on the day of the gladness of his heart. Beautiful image.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
this is the wedding. This is the not just wedding of just a typical man and woman, but this is a royal wedding of the king himself and his beloved, the wedding of ultimately of Christ and his church.
Yeah. And don't get too freaked out here. But Jesus does in fact have a mother. So there is that.
There
So
is that.
don't get freaked out. That's a real thing. But what might be really freaky, kind of the same mother you have. In this sense, Mary is considered like the mother of the church because church belongs to Christ, and who's Christ's mother? It's Mary. And so yeah, you do have this. I don't know what to do exactly with this. Maybe you got something with that with the crown that his mother crowned him. But the language of a mother here doesn't bother me.
No, no, it doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me as well. I mean, this idea of a groom wearing a crown is it's not the only place where this is found. I think it maybe is the only place where you have a mother placing this crown upon him, and which wouldn't have happened in ordinary
Yeah,
coronation
normally this would be
ceremonies.
a father, right? Yeah.
Yeah, this would be I mean, so if it's like a coronation where he's becoming king, it's probably the priest that's putting this on his head, like the royal crown. This is probably going to be a different, like a special crown that is placed upon his head on his wedding day. So
Right.
maybe a garland or something like this. So this isn't your typical coronation crown. This would be like a special crown designed for the wedding day. In this case, it's his mom that puts it on his head. There's a I'm reading here from Isaiah 61, verse 10, which has language somewhat parallel to this. So Isaiah says, I will greatly rejoice in the Lord. My soul shall exult in my God, for he has clothed me with the garments of salvation. He's covered me with the robe of righteousness, as a bridegroom decks himself like a priest with a beautiful headdress, and as a bride adorns herself with her jewels. Now, that's one other biblical description of how people would have dressed on the day of their wedding. We're of course we still get dressed up for the most part for weddings today. Certainly the bride and the groom do. But there's not a lot of physical descriptions that we have in the Bible of what like a typical groom and a bride would have worn. But here we have it. We have one where he's decked himself like a priest with a beautiful headdress. So some sort of headdress, some sort of crown that he would have worn, similar to what is described here. We do have in Psalm 45, which is a another kind of marriage or wedding hymn about the wedding of a royal personage to this bride. We have description of her and what she's wearing, as well as what the groom is wearing. Talks about his robes are fragrant, and he's anointed, and then she is wearing these robes that are interwoven with gold, and they're multicolored, and she's surrounded by her virgin companions as these two come together. So we do have some biblical images in Psalm 45 and here in the Song of Songs and Isaiah 61 of what all went on the wedding day. But the main point about back to the Song of Songs in chapter 3 is that a big deal is made about this because this is the day of the union of these two. He's crowned, she's being carried along, surrounded by all of these warriors, and finally the two are going to be brought together on the day of his wedding and on the day of the gladness of his heart.
What's also certainly true is that if we were talking about sort of some of the stuff we were talking about, I think last episode about this sort of meeting up and this end of all things. This is the culmination of the bride and the groom coming together, and crowns on the head of Christ is certainly sort of many of them, right? Like crown him with many crowns, and so
Mm-hmm.
certainly the crowns on the head of Christ when he is coming for his bride is completely biblical. This is
Yeah, yeah,
definitely something that's going on.
yeah, yeah. He wears the crown of thorns, but that doesn't stay on as long as the other crowns, the crowns that he wears.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the image of him as king and as bridegroom, both combined in one person, I mean, it completely fits with the rest of the biblical images of our returning Lord entering into the union with his people, with his bride.
Yeah, that's kind of what that hymn's about, right? Crown him with many crowns, and you got all. Then you go to say all of these crowns, what all these crowns are, what they all represent. One of them, of course, is that he is the groom, that he is the husband of the church.
Yeah, and that takes us to the end of chapter 3. Look at us
Dude,
making some progress.
we're starting to figure it out.
We are. It's I didn't know, honestly. I didn't know when we were starting this book, what it would be like to talk about. I've never taught this book, so I had to do quite a bit of preparation just getting ready for this. But it was fun, and man, I've learned a lot. Still learning a lot. It's actually been quite enjoyable to kind of dive into all of the various parts of this, and
I
we
was
got more coming up
Well, I was telling
in
somebody
chapter
about
4.
this. They were talking about the podcast, and now we were talking about people that do podcasts by themselves, which I listen to podcasts that people do by themselves. I was like, yeah, what I would not like that. There is something different because I've never like taught through this book either. And if I was just doing that by myself, recording, I promise you it's going to be less interesting. There is something different about talking through it with somebody else that I don't know about the listener, but I know for me, like I get way more out of it than if I just studied it on my own and then delivered what my findings to you. Like that is I'm going to get way less out of that.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, that's one of the, well, it's more fun to study the scriptures with somebody else or with a group for sure. And you end up learning more because you have a conversation and, the other person or persons say something like, "Oh, yeah, I hadn't thought about that," or ask a question you hadn't thought about and react to what you're thinking. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know, that's the best way to learn. That's why I love the classroom. You're always learning from each other.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it's been great. All right. So, man, we got you ready for some beauty?
Yeah,
He
I'm,
is
I'm, I'm ready to hear Solomon do some talking. Let's hear this groom.
yeah, he's got the words this time. I think, if he was a little bit hesitant before, just didn't have quite as much to say as she did, well, his lips have been loosened. He's about to, now that he's seen her coming, then he's going to launch into quite the description.
I think
Now,
that I do think they should have ended this chapter like they didn't figure out this verse thing. They should have just gone ahead and given him this whole chapter.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, just split this verse in half and then have her talk at the end or whatever. Just let him
Oh, I
have
see.
it.
Yeah, at the very end. That's right. Yeah.
Just let him have it, man.
True, true. Yeah, she gets like a half verse to the end. I hadn't even noticed that until now. Yeah. Yeah, let's skip chapter 4 to Solomon.
Yeah,
I
he,
mean,
he
the
don't ha-
guy,
he does not he's saying much less. So make number 4 that's just him going off.
and he's about to draw on every picture he can think of to describe his wife's beauty. Now, all you husbands out there, I hope you're listening because we're about to provide you with some material here,
But
some
don't you think
romance material.
like based on her reaction to like small things that he said and just like how enthralled she is. I mean, this is what she's been waiting for. I mean, she probably just can't even handle what's about to happen. This is by far the most words that he said, and she might be speechless almost after this.
Yeah, I think that she would be. Just this morning, I was talking with my wife Stacy, and I told her, I said, no, I did not give her a bunch of Song of Solomon compliments, even though I have done it in the past, just mainly for humor than anything else, because they don't really make a lot of sense to most of us. Uh, but I told her this morning, I said, I think I'm figuring things out. When I was first going through, like, your eyes are doves and your hair is like a flock of goats and your teeth are like shorn ewes and your cheeks are like a half of a pomegranate. I was like, okay. I mean, I guess this probably sounded awesome in the context in which it was written, but I don't know that I'm really getting it. But now I think I'm thinking pretty close. So we'll see. But I mean, the opening couple lines, this is uh this is of ongoing clarity for no matter when you live or where you live, because Jesus always starts out, "Behold, you are beautiful, my love." And then just to make sure she gets it, he says it again, "Behold, you are beautiful." So good start, A plus.
That still works. That still works today. That
That
one.
still works today. Yeah. I mean, guys, if you're not a guy, if you're not a wordsmith, if you're not big on poetry, if you just, it's Valentine's Day and you got to write something in the card, there you go. Song of Songs, chapter 4, the first half of verse 1. It's a winner. So she is beautiful, and that's beyond doubt. And now he's going to say how she's beautiful. And he's going to start with her eyes. It's going to kind of, he's going to work his way down. Uh, he's going to start with her head and her face and various parts of her head and her face. And he's going to, her hair, and he's going to get to her eyes, and then he's going to talk about her cheeks, and then he's going to talk about her neck, and then he's going to work his way down to her chest, and then he's going to stop, which is probably a good thing. But there is kind of a downward motion here. He doesn't start, saying your feet are like, I don't know, whatever image he would have used there. He starts at the top. And the first thing he says is your eyes. What are your eyes like? Your eyes are doves behind your veil. So she is veiled. And you don't know how common this was in the ancient world, but women sometimes certainly did wear veils, and you still see this. I mean, in wedding ceremonies today. So her eyes are doves behind the veil, and I mean, you can take this, of course, a couple different ways. This was one person said something that I hadn't really thought about, and the idea is that so doves, of course, coo. They make these. It's kind of a soft and gentle noise. And his take on this was your eyes communicate. Like when I see your eyes, you're talking to me. I see your eyes behind the veil and they're speaking to me. And of course, I mean, you can't argue with that. Our eyes, the way we're looking at people can communicate all kinds of things. Anger, interest, boredom, love, lust, all these things can be communicated by the eyes. So maybe that's part of what's going on here. We've seen earlier how the eyes are emblems of love in some romantic poetry. So certainly a positive image. Your eyes are these doves behind the veil. So we got the eyes. Then we're going to shift to the hair. And he says, your hair is like a flock of goats leaping down the slopes of Gilead. So this is what I think is happening here. If you're some distance away from this slope in Gilead, which is east of the Jordan River, a hilly region, so you got slopes that are there. Let's say you're some distance away, and you see this massive flock of goats that are running down or leaping down these slopes. Then one way that could compare to hair is this idea of what do we talk? We still talk about hair like cascading down, right? Kind of flowing down, this flowing hair. It's flowing gracefully down her shoulders or down her back or over her shoulders or whatever it might be. So I think that's what's going on here. It's a moving image. So like these flock of goats that's leaping down or moving down or running down these slopes of Gilead. And he says, that's what your hair is like. It's flowing down, it's cascading down your shoulders, down your back. That makes sense to you?
Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
I don't think I'm going to use it because I don't want to have to explain it. That'll kind of destroy the moment. I think if I was like, man, your hair, if I maybe your wife has done this before, she probably come out and says, my hair look okay. Looks like goats running down a mountain. I don't think that's going to work at all. But yeah, no, I think that does make sense. I kind of picture like whatever you have this kind of slope, right? So I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
you have slopes, and if you think about goats or sheep or anything, like kind of run, like it does sort of outline the thing, right? And of course, goats have fur, and so and I'm assuming this is what this looks like. It's this moving, flowing thing on this slope, and you got to remember, like one that all like the kind of things that they bring up are have a value that like we just can't ascribe to things. And so like if you say your eyes are doves and your hair is like a flock of goats, and I mean right down to even like pomegranates and this kind of stuff. We just take all of this kind of stuff. This stuff means nothing to us, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But these were all like things that were considered good and valuable and praiseworthy, right? And pomegranates appear in lots of places, and this is uh, a luxury, right? And so there's so I guess what I mean is that there's a where if you said something about a goat to your wife, that it's like the opposite thing, like a goat. What are you talking about? But here, like if you had lots of herds of goats, this was a very good thing, right?
Yeah.
And the same with doves and all this kind of stuff. So I think it's important to remember that what are the things that are valuable and esteemed in this society, and then you take those things and use them as descriptions and ways to compliment. And then the other thing, of course, is that you got to remember that this woman's will take anything from this guy. I mean, I mean, just the fact that he's talking about her is making her day.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's so many of those transitions we have to make in reading the scriptures to like what's important now, what was important then, or what was valuable then, what's valuable now. I mean, even when we're learning the commandments, you should not covet your neighbor's ox or donkey. Oh, how many people who are learning the commandments even have a neighbor that owns an ox or a donkey? I mean, very few, right? And certainly coveting your neighbor's ox or donkey is not something that is probably a temptation for a lot of people.
Hey, I was
But you have to make the transition. You have to say, hey, well, yeah, but what about their house? Or what about this fancy new car? Or what
I
about
was
their boat
coveting
or whatever it
I
is?
was coveting my neighbor's bad boy 0 turn radius lawnmower just the
That
other
is a
day.
temptation. That
Yeah,
is a
and I
temptation.
was
Yeah,
like,
a very
well,
real one.
yeah, and I was like, at least it's not a donkey or an ox, and then so I'm
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
Uh,
Off the hook.
and then realized that it's actually the direct equivalent.
Yeah, that's it. Taking care of the grass for your neighbor. Yeah, unfortunately, that is true. Yeah, so flock of goats, hair. Uh, that's end of verse 1. Now, I have to admit, the next verse kind of made me chuckle because here we have a tooth comparison. Your teeth. So, what are you going to say? Plenty of like teeth commercials in our culture. What are white teeth? Of course, are teeth described as glistening, sparkling, whatever it is. We will have these images of a beautiful smile. So white. Well, that wouldn't work. That kind of language really wouldn't work so much in the ancient world. And so he says this. He says, your teeth, you know what they're like? A flock of shorn ewes that have come up from the washing, all of which bear twins, and not one among them has lost its young.
So like,
And what,
here's the thing about this is back then you'd be like, I'm ecstatic that you have teeth.
and you're not missing any.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like the fact that you have teeth is gorgeous.
And the fact that you don't have gaps anywhere in those teeth, fantastic.
You're in the
Yeah. That's
minority.
that's what made me laugh is like, you're not missing any teeth.
Hardcore
This is awesome.
minority, probably.
I'm sure. Yeah. Yeah. Not one of them among them has lost its young. Well, the image, I mean, it does. We do still talk about white teeth today, of course, and that fits here with your teeth are like a flock of shorn ewes that have come up from the washing. You got some white sheep here. Not only are they shorn, uh, they've been sheared, but also they've been washed. So these sheep are going to be white, and yeah, got white teeth going on here. Not stained from years of coffee drinking or red wine or whatever. So they're really white and they're all there. You got a mouthful of white teeth. That's the very kind of prosaic summary of paraphrase of this verse. Doesn't come across quite as poetic, but that's what he's talking about. Okay, we got eyes, we got hair, we got teeth. Now, lips next. And this one I think, it's almost universalized. Your lips are like a scarlet thread and your mouth is lovely.
Yeah, did you hear you're describing the reddest
That
thing you can.
fits.
This is what's the reddest thing that they got, and he's like, well, it's
Yeah.
it's a thread or stitching that's been dyed red, right?
Yeah. I mean, why do women wear lipstick today? At least one of the reasons. Yeah. Especially if they want them to be that particular color. So her lips are like that. Scarlet thread. Her mouth is lovely. Next are her cheeks. Her cheeks are like the halves of a pomegranate behind your veil. So we had the eyes behind the veil. They're like doves. Now we got the cheeks that are also the behind the veil. I think what's going on here is so if you got a pomegranate open, it's going to have a reddish hue to it.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering here if the image is of like she's blushing. Maybe that's kind of what's going on
That's how
here,
I've
but
always taken it. Like some people would
a
be like,
reddish color.
I don't think it's that you got two big, huge, massive lumps on your cheek. I don't think that's it. I think it's if you cut a pomegranate in half and you look at the inside, you're like, yeah, it looks like that's what's going on each side of your your face there, which is still something. I mean, women wear blush and try to make their cheeks red, and so yeah,
More things change, more they
yeah,
stay the same.
they thought that was a good thing back then too.
Oh, yeah. Women use teeth whitener. They put on blush, put on lipstick. All these things are still around.
Now, do they try to have long necks though? That's the question.
That is the question. Yeah. So that's verse 4. We're to the neck. Your neck is like the Tower of David, built in rows of stone. On it hang 1,000 shields, all of them shields of warriors. So there's at least evidence from Egypt that long necks was a characteristic of a beautiful woman. There's a pretty famous piece of art that is the depiction of it's the bust of Nefertiti, who was the wife of one of the pharaohs, and she has this. Google it if you've never seen it, Nefertiti, and she has this very long, narrow neck, uh, and emblematic probably the fact that she was considered to be gorgeous because of this. And so maybe that's what's going on here too. You think of a neck that's like a tower, of course, is a long, long neck. So maybe also that was a image of beauty in Israel. And I mean, we have evidence from other parts of the scripture how shields were used not just as weapons of war, but also as decorations. You have, in David and Solomon's day, you have all these shields that are lined up as decorations. This is probably in reference to like the necklaces she's wearing on her neck.
Yeah.
So just like you have these shields, you've got necklaces on this tower-like neck. So we got eyes, we got cheeks, we got teeth, we got hair, we got a neck here. We're working our way down, so we're to the neck. So what's going to come next? Well, it's going to be her chest. And here we have your two breasts are like two fawns, twins of a gazelle that graze among the lilies.
Yeah, I don't get this one. Gotta be honest. This is
Yeah, this one's I don't know. Uh I'm assuming this has to do with, if we think about fawns, we think about that which is maybe tender, delicate. That's at least the best that I can make out of this comparison. I mean the two breasts and the twins of gazelle, that's obvious
yeah.
because of course we're talking about two breasts, but comparing them to fawns, I don't know that would have anything to do with color or anything like that. I think it probably has to do with delicacy, tenderness. At least that's the best that I can make out of that. And that's where he stops, sort of. I mean, we'll wrap it up here with verse 6. We're almost out of time anyway. Verse 6 says, "Until the day breathes and the shadows flee, I will go away. I will go." Where's it going to go? To the mountain of myrrh and the hill of frankincense. And I wonder if, since we just talked about the two breasts and the twins of gazelle, and now we have also two more things, a mountain and a hill, mountain of myrrh and a hill of frankincense, is if this is not kind of a culmination and continuation of the breast imagery from the other verse here called a mountain and a hill. And of course, this, of course, is, part of the central imagery of the romance and love that they share. He's basically saying, I'm gonna take you in my arms and I'm going to make love to you. I'm going to let you know that you are mine, that I am yours. So after he's given her all these compliments with regard to her beauty, then they will enjoy one another. And that's where we are. I mean, we're not done with this chapter, but it's a pretty good stopping point. We finished verse 6, so we'll pick it up with 7 next time and see what else happens.
Yeah. Sounds good, man. All right. I will see you then.
See you then.